Palestrina's technique that you're studying. He wrote over 100 masses and over like 200 motets, and J.S. Bach copied a lot of it by hand, just as an exercise. And Palestrina was very famous in his day. So this is just a short little piece from part of a mass.
Is it shorter than the introduction?
Yes.
June 1.
Yes.
Yeah. The second two pieces are two more pieces by Scott Green, who we played up in the recital. The first one is Parable. It is a complete original work by Scott, originally in 2024, rearranged for saxophone quartet in 2025. And then the second one is the story of Samson, which was composed for quartet for a church service, even though it's not exactly related to any tunes from the church. Temperature change has made some improvements.
lot like we approached the art of the feud to a certain extent. Things that first of all, you played it great. Question, Jeff, are the articulations you have in here your articulations or something you saw somewhere else?
I added slurs kind of just to reflect the melismas
Okay.
that would be inherent in the singing.
Okay, that's fine. If, some Baroque people would tell you not to do that, but I'm not gonna tell you that, because what you did worked, and it was nice. What I will bring up a little bit is, something we do in Art of the Feud, we talked about earlier, when the other group played. Articulations need to be very similar. And you can't give the Barry a pass because it's different than the soprano, although it is, and you know you have to do whatever you have to do on that instrument to match whatever Jeremiah can do or whatever the alto can do. You have to figure out what that is with a bigger reed and more air to get it to start, to have that same light or crisp articulation that maybe Jeremiah has. So that's something that you actually did a pretty fair job of, but there were some places where I in particular noticed the tenor, some of your articulations were a little unclear when you had to respond to another voice that was around you that was making theirs a little bit more clear. So that's just, it's time together and it's actually talking about it. You actually have to say, okay, are we doing this? It has to be a subject that you bring up, particularly when you're playing this type of music. So anyway, but actually, very nice arrangement. Dynamics, I'm assuming those are your dynamics.
Yeah, just the mezzo forte at the beginning to get everyone started.
Okay. You might find some places in there where you like to vary that a little bit, and they might be like immediately loud and soft instead of crescendos or decrescendos. But I can tell you right now, when we play Art of Feud, we use a lot of times traditional crescendos that they may not have done during that period, just because we damn well feel like them.
Right, and that's mainly why I left them absent, just to leave it up to us.
Yeah, but anyway, very nice. I guess the main thing would be the articulation.
Mhm.
You know, making sure those are very similar, instrument to instrument. Okay, that's all I have.
Awesome. Carl was awesome.
You're good, yeah.
So yeah, Parable was awesome. I know this leader. And you guys were like on it. That was probably the strongest trait, is that the time was never funny. I go, okay, that's it. Cause I'm looking at the score. So I know if something's weird, it was never funny. Now there was an incident that went down. So you can come tell, yeah, it has something to do with you. Yeah.
I do. Would you like to hear it correctly? What was that? 41.
41.
Just so, and you guys aren't looking at the scores, so Scott wrote this. We have 7/8, 8/8, 2/4, 8/8, 2/4, 7/8, 2/4. It goes back and forth, and it's not just to do it. It clearly fits the line that he's doing and the grouping. So we're bouncing back and forth between a duple and triple grouping, and where I'm struggling is when I have rests, remembering, hey, I gotta pay attention to the grouping. So, 41.
Do you
Or
want,
do you want to get into it?
how about the fortissimo 4 bars before?
Sure.
Jeremiah, I would say, I think you're a little strong, just relative. Either you guys need to come up and match his intensity, because as I'm looking at the part, where you have, is that 53? 53, you're all at forte, yeah?
Mhm.
So the person I hear the most in terms of intensity would be Jeremiah. And I guess his part's moving, but there, you have, the macro beat is the same. So I should at least hear the macro beat from all of you is the same.
Okay.
Can we, 51, can we start at 51?
4, 3, 2, 1.
Is that weird?
Yeah, that's fine.